right, guys, welcome back to the FPL Roundtable Pod with my boys FPL K-Man and FPL Stark. Man, it's been a while since we've actually had the pod. I've missed you guys. So, how are you guys doing during the week, and how are you guys feeling?
I'm feeling fantastic. I think we're back. Glory, 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 Manchester United. I had a fantastic week, both FPL as well as outside of FPL. If you've been on X and if you've been around, on the social media, you would have known that Ten Hag has been sacked. Finally, we have been freed. We were imprisoned and we have been freed. So it's a great day. It feels like we earned our Independence Day, to be honest. Um, And yeah, it's a new day. Looking forward to finally watching football. Excited about watching my team. I do want to give a few shout outs.
Mm.
Dalot, big respect. Thank you. I forever owe you for missing that chance. Bruno Fernandes, as usual, thank you for that fantastic performance of not doing absolutely nothing, which got Ten Hag sacked. And obviously West Ham United and the referee for giving them the awarded the pen, as well as Bowen scoring it. So big respect to everyone that contributed to this cause. And ultimately, I'm extremely happy. And I've also had a huge, huge green arrow all the way up to 4K in the world right now. So there's a lot to talk about. How about you guys?
Mate, devastated. Devastated to hear Ten Hag's been sacked. I wanted him to stay forever. And on top of that, I got a red arrow again.
Oh,
So, yeah, there's a lot to discuss. What's your thoughts on Ruben Amorim, the new coach?
I don't know much about him, if I'm being honest. The only thing I know that he's from Portugal and he manages a club there. And that's about it. Sporting Lisbon, I think. And I've not really watched any games. I think for me to judge him, it will be based on what he does at United. So it's a wait and see. Ultimately, I'm hearing good things from people. I've been on spaces and I'm hearing that he's a bit more of an attacking manager. So hopefully that we do play entertaining football and we move away from the terrorist football that we used to play under Ten Hag. And I hope that we have a philosophy and a system of way of playing. So I'm looking forward to that. But ultimately, you can't get worse than Ten Hag, what we had, to be honest. So anything is better right
Yeah,
now.
Yeah, just to quickly, in terms of the appeal, I think the coach is a great signing for United. His style of play is very attacking. They do adopt a high line. He's quite a tactical manager. So he adopts his little tweaks for the opponent, but systematically he plays a 3-4-2-1. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I think one of his wing backs last season contributed to 14 goals and assists. So this is definitely going to appeal for some Dallo. And if you look at Joker, this guy's killing it as a striker. So if he can unlock Hoyland, he could be another asset. It's going to be interesting to see where Bruno plays as well. If he plays because he kind of plays with two tens, like Tuchel did with Mount and Havertz, and then the wing backs bring in the width. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see over the next few weeks. United might be back in terms of assets.
Yeah, but I do want to say the caveat. I don't want to get my hopes up too much. So let's just, because with United is a big difference. Managing a club in Portugal that nobody knows. I understand Sporting Lisbon have somewhat pedigree, but ultimately they're not in Manchester United. We're a heritage club. We're the biggest club in the world. When you come to our club, there's expectations. The minute he starts to slip up, there's not going to be second chances. So ultimately, we're a ruthless
Mm.
club. For us, it's win or bust. So ultimately, we'll see what he's made of. Ultimately, and I hope him all the best. But we need results now. And there's no time to give him, oh, there's a project, there's a process, trust the process. There's no time, there's none of that. What we are on, straight up win or bust or leave. Simple as that, bro. So I don't want to get my hopes up. I want to see what he does. I'll give him maybe half a season and I'll judge him based on that.
yeah, that's fair. I just feel like with Man U, it's nice to always get a new manager. I just feel like the timing of it was pretty odd. Probably would have been smarter in the summer. And with Man U, it's not like just a coach issue. It's like a whole structural club issue where it's like you have certain coaches coming in and out, and you have like different people doing the hiring and firing of players. And it's like a new manager comes in, maybe he'll prefer a different tactical style. Different players will suit that. So let's see what happens and the implications. I think the timing of it's terrible, but anything's better than where you were before, right? So yeah, I'm happy for you guys.
Interesting that you say win or bust. Ten Hag's 3 years down the line, bro, and he's terrible, bro. So I don't think you're as ruthless as you think, but I think we should move on, no, to
Yeah.
the first talking point, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So the first one's going to be like we've noticed that elite managers in general are just struggling this season. So we're seeing the median rank of the elite 1,000 managers at this point, which is around game week 8 when we looked at the data. It was actually the median of 2.3 million. Now, in previous seasons, these ranks last year, for example, were at 1.4 million. The year before that, it was at 400K. The year before that was 150K. So, relatively, this is probably the most difficult season for elite managers. And I guess the question to ask yourself is, why is that happening? Like, why do we feel like this year is just so difficult for most elite managers?
They're getting something wrong, and it's a bit of an echo chamber. You feel like normally the majority of those managers, if we're assuming, the question I want to know is what makes them the elite 1,000? Is it their historical overall rank, or is it are we talking about the content creators? Like, what is
No, no,
the
it's
elite?
not content creators. I think it's the average of the last 5 years. Like, and they have like the top 1,000 managers. I could be wrong about that, but that's what my assumption is.
Okay. What do you guys think about why they're struggling? I think K-Man's got a strong opinion.
Yeah, I think I'm a big fan of watching content creators. I generally enjoy watching pretty much every content creator, regardless of how small or big you are. There's no bias in that sense, as long as you provide good insights or you provide entertainment. So in the community, we have guys like big dogs like Andy, who provides a bit of both, a bit of banter as well as really good insight because he's really experienced. And then you also have the likes of FPL Harry, who's an absolute nerd, as a compliment, by the way, who looks into data as well as eye test and obviously makes the best decision. His rank average is insane for the last 4 seasons. He's what, like average 2K in the world or something like that. So he's insane. And then obviously you got Raptor. So various content creators, big shout out to them. Ultimately, I think they've why they're struggling this season really badly is to do with the initial just to start the season. I think with the pricing that the FPL gave this season made it really question people whether they want to go with pretty much template picks like how they used to do back in the days, like our last couple of seasons. Like, oh, okay, you got your Saka, you got your Salah and Palmer or whatever, right? And you just pick the best players, and then that's how you start the season with template picks. But this season they couldn't do that. They had to. Their thinking was ultimately we need to choose between Salah and Haaland, and I think that mindset, that was spreaded throughout the whole community. I don't know where it came from, but whoever it came from, it spread through the whole community, and pretty much every content creator had the same theme, and it was being repeated continuously, even till now. I think that is a big mistake. And another thing I want to mention is that the reason why I'm saying that it's not just from me observing, it's also to do with the fact that I look at some stats is that it says in the top 100K, um, over 43% of managers have both Haaland and Salah. So that tells you if you start the season with Haaland and Salah, and regardless of whoever else you had, whether it's your Rogers or Semenyo or Wood or whoever, Muniz or whatever, you are doing pretty well because those two have killed it. And if you got your captaincy on one of them, depending on the week, you pretty much killed it. So I think that was one of the things that they missed. And another thing is that I think they underestimated how the enablers could do. For example, the likes of Rogers and Semenyo. We knew how good Semenyo was from last season, right? Obviously, Rogers is a new invert, like someone that new came to the scene. But Semenyo, we knew how good he was. We knew how good Wood was from last season. So there were a couple of picks that we already knew how great they were. But obviously, they opted to go with Salah or a Haaland, and that's what ultimately punished them, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's like more of like the knock-on effect. I think the real cause for me is that like FPL pricing is actually done very well this year. In previous seasons, we've had players who are just completely mispriced, and if you didn't know they were just optimal picks, you were behind the field. I'll give you an example. If we had Brian and Bumo priced at 6.5 this season, and the whole like Clueden analytics community owns him, and the casuals don't, there's obviously a big advantage. And we've seen what Bumo has done the last couple of weeks. It's just one example, and I felt like in previous seasons there have been players mispriced, and so the analyst community has always had a leg up on the rest of the field. But now with the analytics team being integrated with FPL pricing, it's just making the analytics in general just less valuable because the price incorrectness isn't really that relevant. And it's really just coming down to like the little variances and a little bit of luck and a little bit of just little things like that that I feel like the the gap between the casuals and the include in like engaged community is just much smaller just based on pricing. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah. I think it's a great point. I think the pricing, well, I would say the majority of these managers tend to be quite template managers. This is an assumption, and I think even if I watch FPL therapy, everyone he brings in, not everyone, but there's a lot of template managers, and I think template managers this season are doing quite poorly to start off with. Like, there's a lot of them not have the greatest rank, and that's because necessarily I don't think it's a template season because of the pricing, and there's always going to be swings. But what I would say is the template seems to be a freemium structure, and I don't think they've clocked onto that structure yet, as K-Man was saying. So you've been on Saka, Salah, and Haaland pretty much all season, and then you've just switched to Palmer. So it's like you've always got captaincy, and yeah, there's just so many examples of Salah in game week 1 versus Ipswich, captain. Haaland in game week 2, captain. Haaland game week 3, captain. And you just constantly rotating the captain when the fixtures suit. So yeah, it's like if you put all your eggs in one basket with Haaland, it's difficult because these blanks the last few weeks. What's the alternative if you don't have another premium like Palmer or Salah? So yeah, it's interesting.
And this week is a great example, Stark, just to lean on to the point you mentioned. For example, this week people are breaking their team to bring in Salah. So we're gonna get into that in the next section. Like they're saying, oh, let's take out Haaland now and bring in Salah for -4 or whatever, right? And I don't think that's the right way to go when you have Haaland playing Bournemouth and Brighton as well as Spurs, which are very teams that normally go for it, high pressing teams, play high line and whatnot. So I do think it's a bit of an, I wouldn't say reactionary, but a bit more knee jerky. And I think they're going in circles ultimately because 2 weeks ago, the general theme was, oh, we need to get Haaland in for these great fixtures because he's an auto cap, right? You got Southampton, Wolves, like this too good to pass, right? So they sold Salah, and and then obviously they bought in Haaland. Now 2 weeks later, they want to sell Haaland and bring in back Salah. Like you can't when you rotate these premiums like that in just that short amount of time, you're bound to miss out one of those holes. Like for example, if Haaland goes and bangs a hat trick versus Bournemouth, would you be surprised? And then you're kicking yourself.
No.
Or why did I bring in Salah? So ultimately,
Yeah, exactly.
it's difficult. It's difficult. I think you got to be more patient this season and trust the premiums that you have and judge them in not just I'd say in 2 3 game weeks, but more in like 5 or 8 game weeks junction rather than just switching every 2 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's interesting that you'll notice that even though some of the ranks at game week 8 in previous seasons have been pretty poor, you'll notice that even their finishes at the end of the season on the bottom right section of the chart, it's all within the top 100K. So they're having very solid finishes, even though they're starting poorly in the most recent 2 seasons, they're still finishing very well. So it's interesting to keep an eye on how the elite managers will finish. I'm curious to see how that trend will change potentially this season or if it'll continue. So something to just keep in mind. Let's move on to one of the more interesting sections of last week where we had Holland coming up at home against Southampton. And in this match, a lot of managers triple captained him. Curious to hear what you guys think about the fixture and why, like the result of the triple captaincy against in game week 9.
Yeah, I watched that game as a Haaland captainer, and do you know what? As a non-triple captain owner, I think we definitely got away with one. I triple captain in game week 2, so I was kind of watching. It's weird. Had him captain, but I used my triple captain already, so I didn't want him to bang a hat trick. I just wanted that brace and nothing more, so I could get a little triple captain win. And it's crazy. It's crazy how he put up that XG and just only got away with one return. I think triple captainers were a bit unfortunate, to be honest. But that being said, I wouldn't have used my triple captain myself on the basis that KDB wasn't available. And I think there's going to be better triple captains to target down the line.
I think the issue was not only that KDB wasn't available, is that people didn't consider the fact that he was in a quite a bad form, especially if you look at the results that he had versus Wolves. I mean, Fulham. He also was poor versus Newcastle. I understand he wasn't getting the big chances, but ultimately, as a striker, you can't just expect to get every single ball to your feet. You gotta sometimes work for it. So ultimately, I think there was an issue of for him whether he was actually at his best in the last couple of fixtures, and that's reflecting in his performance. So we got to be critical of the player because we're looking into KDB and other players and criticizing them ultimately. But we got to also think and be critical of Haaland himself as a striker that costs 15.4 million, and from FPL wise, you cannot be expecting him to get like in 5 games only 1 goal, the last 5, and that's
Yeah,
unacceptable. And I think people that are considering selling him, they wouldn't be wrong because there are other premiums that are banging in goals every week and outscoring him, and you can only endure
yeah,
so
of
much
course.
pain, especially if you're in the ranks of millions, right? Because you're not really gaining anything by keeping him. So I
Yeah, of
do
course.
understand people that are frustrated and want to sell it to him, but I do want to also add the caveat that KDB could be back soon, and the next 3 fixtures on paper looks even better than the other one or the old ones. And you might say that's crazy, but because Bournemouth does like to press, and if KDB is available for that game, he could get a couple of returns. But at the same time, Bournemouth away could be. You can look at both ways, to be honest. But the 2 fixtures that I really, really like him for is Spurs and Brighton. For me, those games. He's a clear captain, most certainly, and it's tough for me to sell him now. I do want to give him the next 3, and then I could be on the board of not Haaland as well. But we'll see. We'll get into that. What are your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, no worries. I just think it's interesting to see that you'll see game week 7 and game week 8 at the bottom of the XG total because we've sorted it from highest XG to lowest XG. So just curious to see that, people actually still triple captain him. They did get unlucky, but it is what it is. Like that's what FPL is going to be all about. For example, his second highest XG total, which is the Ipswich game, he actually scored 3 goals from 1.8 XG, and he couldn't only score 1 goal from 2.33 XG this week. So if I told you that he's going to pick up 2 XG in the game, I think people still would have triple captained. So
But
it is what
but
it
we're
is. You got to
missing the
live with the
point though,
results, right?
Kanji. How many big chances, clear cut chances did he get versus Ipswich compared to how many he got versus Southampton? Personally, I think he had better quality chances versus Ipswich than versus Southampton. Even Brentford as well, he had so many good chances when KDB was there. I mean, the fact that he only came with 2 goals, that was criminal as well. I watched that game. He had ridiculous amount of chances versus Brentford.
Well,
Honestly,
he had 8 shots against Southampton, so they were the the point that people were worrying about was who's going to provide the service to him. That's 2 games in a row. If you include the Champions League, he had a lot of shots in the Champions League tie as well. So the service is starting to arrive with
that's
Savio
true.
playing Odin.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I've got Haaland. I don't have Salah, and it's a mistake on my part. I wish I had Salah, but I don't think it's worth selling Haaland right now before Brighton and Tottenham. It's like people are going to sell Haaland to captain Salah versus Brighton, and Haaland has Brighton next week. Like for
That's
me,
yeah.
Haaland outscores Salah against Brighton. So like I think Haaland will get more points versus Brighton than what Salah will get versus Brighton. That's my take. So I don't see the point in removing Haaland for Salah captain versus Brighton when he literally has the same fixture next week.
Yeah, I
What's
mean, it depends on the alternatives in each week. For example, like next week, Spurs play Ipswich. So if Son's fit and healthy, then he could just captain him as the alternative to Holland. So it just depends. And also, like, you got to keep in mind that he's worth 15.0, right? So people are taking that extra money and spending it elsewhere. So it's a tough one, but I would agree. I think you're probably better off holding Holland for the next couple weeks and then selling later. So
Can I add a
I
caution
think
to
we
that
can.
Son captaincy shout? I would say caution because when you're looking at Haaland versus Brighton and Son versus Ipswich, on paper it seems like it's really good for Son and he might outscore Haaland, but it could easily be a situation where Son blanks or Son comes with only 1 goal and Haaland gets a hat trick versus Brighton. The reason being because do you guys remember Ipswich versus Brighton? And Brighton plays somewhat similar to Tottenham, like they go all out attack, right? And that was a draw. So we can't sometimes look at the picture. We can't look at the picture on paper and just assume that it's gonna be a complete bang out. Ipswich could just, play like the way they played versus Brighton because they would respect Tottenham and their attack, and they might park the bus, right? And all of a sudden,
Yeah,
Son doesn't like low block. So I just want to add a
yeah,
caution there. So be careful
yeah,
of
of
those
course.
type of captaincy. So yeah,
I think,
Yeah, of course. Yeah, well, Spurs can be Spursy. That's always part of the card, right? So
yeah,
yeah, I
there's
think
that. It's just like a comparison, right?
if you're on a no Haaland structure already and you ahead of time have brought Son in and you're maybe holding him in the likes that he's fit, like Kanji, I think yeah, it makes sense to captain him in 11. But if you're on Haaland right now, I would urge caution. Don't sell him just yet. I think the exit point is after Tottenham. That's just my opinion because I don't think you can hang your hat on Son at the moment, who literally played 1 game and then is getting rested as a precautionary because he still feels that uh, kind of niggling injury. So what happens if he plays against Villa and that same issue comes. Like these
Yeah,
are all
exactly.
like, but you've got to think about those things. Haaland, you know what you're going to get. He's going to get 90 minutes. He's the best striker in the game. You look at how he performs. He is so quick. His movement is elite. If you deploy a high line versus him, you're literally playing into his hands, and he doesn't get that
Mhm.
opportunity often to utilize what he's actually really good at. So it's going to be so interesting to see the narrative after those two games.
Yep.
100%. Yeah. So let's move on to the next section where we have Gabriel replacements. Now we have seen Gabriel potentially pull up with some sort of injury. It could be an MCL, but we did get a positive update that it's not major news. We're gonna have to wait to see if he's in training or not. I'm sure Arteta will manipulate the picture so we won't actually know if he's training, but I think we're gonna be more hopeful than where we were a couple of days ago. We don't know if he's gonna start or not, but if we had to bring in some defensive replacements, who would be the players that you guys would be considering?
I'm looking at because I have Gabriel. I imagine we all have Gabriel, right?
Mhm.
So I imagine a lot of people made the early move to Gvardiol. As a Rico Lewis owner, I wouldn't make that move. I don't want double City defense personally. He's got great attacking threat, but just wouldn't be for me. I would probably go for. Oh, it's so early to say this, but Diego Dallo is catching my eye in the sense that that new system, the new fixtures are going to be around the corner. I think he's one to look out for Leicester as the entry point if Amorim gets the job for Leicester. Because I can just see a new manager tends to come in and start from the beginning, and the first thing you do is defensive structure, keep a clean sheet, and move on. So, and I think three at the back, funny enough, would suit United more with the options they have. Like even Maguire, right? Maguire looks much more competent in a back three as opposed to a back four. If you look how he plays for England, he plays pretty well compared to United in a back four. I just don't think he can pivot, but Amorim likes to play a high line, so we'll have to wait and see for that. Reece James and Gusto, if you don't own Sanchez, Reece James is taking in swinging corners. The fixture swing is 12. So if you bring him in, I like to bring in defenders. I know I won't transfer out for a very long time because I prefer to move other assets like attackers, midfielders. And another one, Trent. I'm looking at bringing Trent back in or Kanate.
I would say Konate is priority number one if you don't have the likes of Trent already and or Virgil. I wouldn't double up on any defense to be honest. So that's one. And I would give another one. I'd give a shout out to Forest defender Milinkovic. And then I would say United is a wait and see for me. I think only go to eight Nori if you. I don't personally. I don't think it's a good transfer, but he does have attacking threat. And the caveat is that he's on 4 yellow. That's the only issue. So eight Nori is another shout. It's not for clean sheet, but just for attacking returns. Ultimately, when I'm looking at this, I don't really like that many defenses. Palace have not been great defensively, although they may have good fixtures on paper. But if you think that they're going to turn around because they kept a clean sheet versus Spurs, maybe you can get one of the defenders. They're quite cheap. For example, Munoz, we've dropped down to I think 4.7 now. He's quite attacking as well. I also like Mitchell. He's really attacking. So you'd consider them if you don't have Henderson already. And from Chelsea, maybe Gusto. And a Fulham defender, it could be Robinson. But
Bro,
yeah,
bro, what do you think about the fact that Aston Villa, if you look at the XGC, Villa and Tottenham are quite low down, right? Lower than Arsenal. Bro, that is a trap. That is a trap if I've ever seen one. They will not keep clean sheets. I don't know what you guys think about that, but this is why data is misleading, in my opinion, sometimes. If you don't validate it with the eye test.
can
I
I
think
just
Yeah,
you have
add
that's
to that
true.
point? I think that's why we go back to this chart here. And that's what I think is also part of the problem, what you just mentioned. I think historically speaking, the elite managers could be driven by data. And now that we have so much data available, they're relying on more and more on data rather than eye test and watching the games. And that could be the reason also why the deep in form or the rank for the elite managers.
That's a good
But yeah,
point.
just
Yeah,
moving
that's a
on.
great point.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think you can consider Pedro Porro as an alternative because Spurs do have Ipswich and Southampton, Fulham, Bournemouth next couple weeks. They also have Man City there, so I don't know. I don't really trust Porro, but he's an option. For me, I'd be on Van Dijk because Liverpool are comfortably the best defense in the league. We're not getting three red cards in like 9 games. We're just more disciplined than Arsenal, and I think the underlying data for Liverpool is just very strong defensively. I know we've had very good fixtures, but I really wouldn't even mind a double up of Trent and Virgil. So if Gabriel's out long term, I would probably move to Virgil. If not, I'd probably move to Ben White. Did you guys see Ben White's pass to Bukayo Saka for the first goal? Class, bro. Like he just has good attacking threat. I mean, it's not as high as the other creative wing backs, but I mean, he's playing for Arsenal at the end of the day. He has some sort of attacking threat, and so maybe even a Timber is a good shout, but a little bit too much rotation risk for me. So I'd probably be on Van Dyke or Ben White myself.
But I would say
Bro,
he's
Yeah.
still
So
a
those
hold
would be
though.
the
I would say he's still a hold. I think Gabriel is still a hold. I think if because there's an international break coming up in game week 12, isn't it? So even if he's out, say I don't know the next 2 weeks, and you got a bench cover like the likes of Davies or someone like that, or Robinson, you got a fourth defender, you could just play them and then just hold Gabriel for get to game week 12 because from that run, Forest, Bournemouth, they got so many good fixtures. Not Bournemouth, but they got Forest, and I think they play. I forgot the other fixtures. I think I can show you guys here. I think they play Forest, West Ham, United. These are really good fixtures. So ultimately, you would want to keep him for that run. And if you could hold him, I'd personally hold.
yeah, it
Kanji,
makes sense.
Kanji, surely you'd get Kanate ahead of Van Dijk though. Surely, like, come on, that just makes sense, right? How can you
You would
justify?
think it makes sense, but like Konate is very injury prone. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him eventually get injured. So you end up spending two transfers defensively. So if you go Virgil, you're just locked in long term.
Okay, but let me pose
So
this question, right? Let's say Kanate gets injured, right? Would you even want double Liverpool defense in the first place? Would you want Van Dijk?
no,
The clean sheet appeal
you're
diminishes
playing.
to an extent, right? So instead
Yeah,
of worrying about him actually getting injured, um, you should bring in the cheaper option, considering they both play centre back. They both have equally an aerial threat from set pieces, but you're saving a lot of money on one. If
yeah,
you know,
that's a fair point. That's a very fair point. I didn't even think of that actually. That's a good point. Yeah, so I think we can move on to the next section, which is going to be the captaincy and premium matrix section. Man, yo, okay, man, this graphic is absolutely gorgeous. So we have the graphic from Lego Mane, which is going to be the looking at the fixtures that are good and bad for some of the premiums, and we've included some very good underlying data for the premiums underneath. So curious to see what you guys think. But from my first initial like sight, what I'm seeing is that there's a very difficult fixture swing for Man City, which we've already noticed. You can see that in game week 12, 13, 16, 17, those are not going to be fixtures you really want to be captaining Holland. Maybe the Spurs fixture on paper could look difficult, but it could be a good fixture for him. But for example, in game week 14, if we look at the defensive data, if we go back up one slide, Nottingham Forest, I think we're like the fourth or fifth best defense over there. So I don't really like that Nottingham Forest fixture for Man City. So if we just go back to the premium swapping chart, like I still just don't like this run for Holland. Like this is like the perfect run to really go against him. I think if you don't sell him in this run, I'd be surprised if you ever sell him. But yeah, we have some really good alternatives at this point. Salah has a really good entry point this week playing against Brighton. Saka's fixtures turn, Palmer's fixtures turn, and then we obviously have if we're gonna sell, Holland, we have to bring in another striker. So we need to consider one of Watkins and Isak as well. So curious to see what you guys think of that.
I think the most important uh, thing you need to get right when going against Haaland is you need to plan who you're going to captain. And I know that we actually, if we go to that graph, we did a little matrix for no Haaland until 18 when they play Everton in 18 and the swing goes to, I think, 23 or something. So obviously, if we talk through that, we've highlighted in green. So green is who we think's the standout captaincy on paper, right?
Mhm.
So we got Salah versus Brighton, Palmer versus United, and Son v Villa. So we're all agreeing Salah versus Brighton, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So that's from 10. So I know a lot of people will go no Haaland now and get Salah in. So if that was the case, obviously you got Salah in 10, Son in 11, which makes sense as we discussed earlier.
Hmm.
Who you own both Salah and Palmer? Who are you going to go on game week 12?
I think
Um,
that I would be on Palmer specifically just because of X minutes. Like, given how difficult Liverpool's fixtures are in the Champions League, I expect Salah to get minutes rotated in the Prem. Like, it wouldn't surprise me to see him get a 70th minute sub if it's a 2 or 3 nothing. Versus like if it's Palmer, I would just expect him to play the full 90, even if it's 2 or 3 nothing up. So just
but
specifically
Kies is
because of that, if
injured
it's
though.
ever a
But
50-50, I
Kies
would
is
always
injured
be
though,
on
Kanji.
Palmer.
Kies is injured, Kanji.
What do you mean?
So who's he gonna come in? Who's gonna rotate him on the right wing? Diaz?
Diaz.
So they can
Diaz.
Diaz can just come in, yeah.
Yeah. I think that one is a close call. Just flip a coin. Personally, I'd go with Salah and give me 12, but yeah,
Real Madrid, like they've got Real Madrid next though. Do you know what I mean? So I
I
do get that
see.
point.
I see.
Like if Liverpool are winning 3-0 at half time, we wouldn't be surprised to see Salah come off in the 70th minute that game. Palmer, like Kanji said, 90 minutes. Leicester, Leicester are bad as well. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I think Southampton, man, it's going to be a close one. But game week 13, I think, is also quite close. And Boomo versus
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
weird to put Bumo in this conversation, like, just given his price point, but he's just been so consistent. Like, he just generally finds a way to get returns. I think Brentford are in the top 6 or 7 for XG created this year. I think they're more than even Arsenal this year. Like, it's ridiculous. So, and Bumo is going to be on pens, and we've seen the way that Brentford are playing. They're not really sitting deep at all. They're usually just trying to score a lot of goals. And Brentford are a very data heavy team. So it seems like the data analyst has just told Thomas Frank, forget about the defense. Go out there and try to score as many goals as you can because you have good finishers and Bumo and Wissa up there. So it kind of makes sense to me. And I do feel like in good fixtures, especially at home, we can consider him. And I think Bumo, because he's at home, gives me a slight edge. But I guess Saka is the better player. He'll probably have the higher ownership that week.
Yeah, it's interesting to note as well that Brentford versus Leicester will not be a cagey game. Leicester will go for Brentford because they'll feel like they can. Whereas I think Leicester versus Chelsea at Leicester's ground, I think they'll be more inclined to play a bit more structural. So, and Boomer versus Leicester could be just an end-to-end bloodbath like we've seen in the kind of games. Like Brentford have such end-to-end games. But if West Ham continue to be terrible, Saka might just like get a double-digit haul that game. So either or, like as you can see, you've always got options with no Haaland. And if you don't own Haaland, but if you do own Haaland, you're kind of inclined to captain him. So if you're not going to captain him, you're probably more optimal to get rid of him. So that's why we made this matrix.
Can I just
Yeah.
add
So we
something
keep
though?
going with.
Can I add something to this though? I think one thing we're missing in this, right, is the fact that we're not seeing what managers are going against here. I understand like you need to see like what fixtures is Haaland a good captain and that he has a potential for a hat trick, and who are we basically essentially putting him up against within this chart. It's not showing that. And I think one way we can do that is look at City's fixtures from, for example, if you're looking at City, for example, they're what? So in game week 11, they play Brighton. That game week on paper, Haaland is the best captain. Do we agree? If we're looking at this chart as well, is he
I
not better than Son?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I is yeah.
So yeah, so that's one, right? And then another one we can look at on clear cut, right? So if you're looking at against City's fixture in game week 12, arguably he could be, but you got Salah and Palmer who's got just as high a ceiling. So I would say that one is more close. I wouldn't mind going against Haaland that week. And then up into game week 18, you don't captain Haaland. He doesn't have the same ceiling as the others. Are you saying that you're as confident as the likes of Salah and Palmer versus Southampton as you are on, for example, Haaland versus Forest or Palace away or United or Villa? So there's a legitimate argument for those who want to go against Haaland up into 18, and this chart proves that because your
Yeah.
captains will because you're going up against like Haaland has tough fixtures if you're really looking at it from game week 13 onwards. Like, I think that's the best time off
Yeah.
to jump off him from Liverpool, Forest, Palace away, United at home, Villa away, and then Everton at home. Everton's going to play, 10 centre backs. Like,
Yeah. I
I
mean,
do think there's
it's
a legitimate
interesting.
argument to go against Haaland. And it's just a matter of, do you have the guts to do it? What's your risk appetite? What's your stream structure like? And there's a lot of factor goes into it. So, but this is just
And
to
there's
help you
also
guys
the fact
understand.
that
But anyways, yeah.
we're just sort of looking at it up until game week 18. Because,
Yeah.
like, a lot of managers, when we get to game week 19, when we go back to that fixture swing for Man City, if you go back to the Lego Monte chart, I think you'll be able to see a little bit better. Where it's like you'll see that fixture swing for Man City 18 and 19, like you're going to want Holland back in. So teams that like sell him, then they're going to have to use the transfers to get rid, spread the money properly, and then use transfers to bring him back. So the other side of it is probably like the Cayman side, where it's like you have, two midfield premiums plus Holland. As long as you're captaining the player you think he scores the most points, whether that's a Palmer or a Son or a Salah in the other weeks, maybe you can just keep Holland. So that way you have him as like a potential, lower effective ownership captain in 18 and 19, or others are like, scrambling to bring him in. So it's just an interesting way to look at it. But I really just think that you're better off with a Holland over the course of the season. I just think he's so expensive. There's so many good value picks in the game that I think will get points. The likes of like Alexander Isak and Ollie Watkins, for example, at the striker spot, or Trent over the Kanate, or like a Raya over a Cells. Like I just feel like over the course of the season they will get more points. Like it's pretty nailed on there. So I think it's if you can cover the captaincy, I think it's worth going against it. And so for specifically this run, it's a no-brainer. But it's about, is it worth the upside in these like 6 or 7 games, and is it worth the transfers?
Yes, you see, I wouldn't say it's a no-brainer though, because if KDB is back, all of a sudden, Haaland can bag against anyone. That's the problem we have. I think KDB is such a huge factor in this of not going against Haaland. For example, for myself, like I would genuinely consider going against Haaland from 13 onwards till 18 or whatever, right? And save transfers for now, roll for the next 3 weeks, and go against him if I know that KDB is not available. I'll genuinely go against him because I don't see him myself captaining him versus Liverpool, Forest, Palace, United, Villa, and even Everton as well. Like I would captain the likes of, for example, in 13, I've got Mbima versus Leicester or Saka versus West Ham away. Like these are good fixtures on paper. And then I've got Palmer, Southampton, 14, 15 Watkins versus Southampton. That's easy money. Palmer's got Spurs as well. So I'm looking at this and I'm seeing it as completely viable to go against Haaland from 13. But it's just a matter of will KDB be back by then? And how does City look then? Do you know what I mean?
Even if KDB's back, even without KDB, Haaland can score in any given game week. But if you
Yeah.
play you got to know what also you're adding to your team, like Kanji said. So if you go without Haaland, and you have 3 premium midfield like Salah, Saka, and Palmer, you've got the talisman for 3 top 6 teams. And even if Haaland does score a brace, right, I don't think many people will captain him anyway in that run. I don't think many engaged managers who play the fixtures, because that's arguably the most optimal approach to FPL, I don't see many of them captaining Haaland versus Liverpool. So if you go against Haaland against Liverpool, even if he scores a brace, who's really going to have him captain against Liverpool? Like we
The
all get that.
casuals, the casuals will do. The people that don't play the game, they all of a sudden, get people that engage, and that's what's going to
Yeah,
happen, unfortunately.
exactly, but I don't think it's going to damage your rank over over an extended period. I
But
really
that
don't.
depends on where you are, though. Honestly, I think.
Yeah, but what I would say is if you do have Haaland now, I think you would. I do think you're probably best to wait until game week 13 because I think that's when Watkins has a good entry point, and I think
Yes,
Watkins.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. You
Perfect.
see,
This is a
that's where I
perfect
wanted to
segue.
segue
So
to, because if you look at the fixtures, right, for Villa, when is the fixture turn? So you're looking at game week 13 where they play Chelsea. Okay, Chelsea on paper is a red fixture, but ultimately they're a terrible defense, and Stark will admit that. Um,
Yeah, like Isak's XG against us, he should have had a brace that game, and Newcastle's team was not great, and they were going away from home. So Watkins in a Villa side that look quality right now, I think Watkins will do us damage personally because yeah, we very end-to-end games we take a lot of risks. So
And
we're
can you
there.
see the next 3 years of Watkins? Brentford, Southampton, and Forest. These are lovely fixtures. I would not be surprised if he gets 2 versus Brentford and 2 versus Southampton. Honestly, I would
Yeah,
not be shocked. And then obviously from 17 it gets a bit more tricky. But ultimately City plays a high line. That will be an open game, right? And Newcastle. And Forest away is a tough one. I can only see like so basically from game week 13 to 18, I can only see 2 tough fixtures. Forest and City. That's about it.
yeah, I think with Watkins, he's very much fixture proof, right? So if you go back to the premium swapping chart, you'll notice at the bottom of that, we've had a minutes per expected goal involvement graphic, and you'll see that Watkins and Isak are very close in terms of the amount of minutes that it takes for them to get one expected goal involvement. So what do you guys take from that? Because from the way that you guys are talking, it seems like very obvious that if you're going with a no Holland structure, you guys would probably be prioritizing Watkins over Isak, right?
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. This is my emphasis on if you just look at data, right, you will be misled in my opinion because data without context is meaningless. You can't tell me that Newcastle right now are playing the same caliber of football as Aston Villa. You can't. Watkins is looking on fire right now. Isak and Isak's a baller. We all know that. But Newcastle there's something missing right now. In the table, they're getting points, but performance-wise, they're not firing like we know they can. And I don't think their fixtures are great either. So if you go into Isak when he's not firing and the fixtures aren't there, arguably, and from an optimal standpoint, you're not making an optimal decision. Whereas Villa are firing, the fixtures are good there. We know what Watkins can do last season, same as Isak, but Villa are proving that they can do it this season. So the data for me, yeah, they're similar numbers, but the situation is completely different with two clubs, in my opinion. So that's why I'd go with Watkins.
Agreed. I think you covered what I would have said, to be honest, in regards to Watkins
Oh
and
wow.
Isak.
Well, this is why we have a pod because I completely disagree with that. So if we look at the underlying XGI, like it's very similar. I think there's what like 1.0 difference, but that's because Watkins has played two more games than Isak. So their underlying XGI is very similar. And over the course of their history, Watkins and Isak are both very similar in terms of their finishing. And the teammates that they're passing to are not like that much better at Aston Villa, as if like Rodgers is like a way better player than Anthony Gordon or something. Like it's just they're very similar. And
I
I
would
think
disagree
that
with that.
like
I do think Rodgers is a way better player than Anthony Gordon.
okay, but it's not like it's a massive difference like it's KDB versus like Szoboszlai. Like
Let's
it's not that much of a difference in a way.
compare Gordon and Rodgers. They're two different players, two different positions. It's kind of the
True,
same.
true, true. Yeah, so I'm just trying to emphasize that like the players Isak is playing with, they can also finish. And so like you'll notice that like over the course of Walken and Isak's history, they are just solid finishers. They get like 15 XG, they have 15 goals. So if I'm looking at Watkins getting the same amount of chances as Isak, and the fact that Newcastle have had two penalties already, but Isak has been off the pitch for both of them. If I were to include that in the data, then Isak is the better pick. Not only because he would pick up more non-penalty XGI per 90, he'd also be cheaper, and he would also play 90 minutes because Watkins is also in the Champions League. So it's basically the trifecta for me to be on Isak over Watkins. But that's why we look at like FPL differently. Like there's different ways to play.
Do you know
Okay,
So
what?
I just want to emphasize that side.
Do you
the
know
play
what? Go on.
that right. If earlier on you looked at Bruno's data and you compared it to, I don't know, Mbumo, right? Let's say, for example, Mbumo, Bruno probably had more XG, right, or similar XG. Who can we compare Bruno to, right? But the point I'm making is Bruno's XG is great. His XGA great. But what was the current situation at Manchester United? If you remind me, it was a shambles, right? So why on earth would you go for Bruno Fernandes when it's a shambles, regardless of what the data is telling you? Like Newcastle's fixtures aren't great right now. They seem to be people are saying now Newcastle's a good fixture. Like people are talking about getting Saka back in for Newcastle and Chelsea because arguably, like Newcastle's defense isn't great. People were bringing in Palmer for Newcastle. Newcastle aren't hitting right now. So for me, I'm avoiding Isak until game week 15. That's when I think his entry point because it gives you a time to actually see if they can find a solution to their problems. And ultimately, I don't think I want Isak if Gordon's not available.
Can
But
I add
that doesn't
something
even
else to
make
that?
sense though, because like Isak has picked up over 1 XG against Brighton and over 1 XG against Chelsea. So like he's performing well. He had like 7 shots, 4 of them on target versus Brighton, and he scored versus Chelsea anyway.
But how
So
many?
it's one of those where like I don't know.
That's, that's bad as a striker though. Like, how can you have 8 shots and not score against
Yeah, so his
Brighton?
conversion rate is down. Like for example, if we compare it to like a Nicholas Jackson, his conversion rate is like 2.5 times as strong as Isak right now.
Confidence and the situation at Chelsea. Like we're going like this. Newcastle seem to be going like this, kind of down straight. What Villa are like this. Confidence is a big thing in sport, and I just think if you just solely look at data, you don't look at these things, and I think
Can
that's
I
when
add
you.
something else? As a midfielder, you don't need confidence sometimes, yeah. But as a striker, the biggest thing that you need is that mental, that confidence, and that form. And right now, Isaac is not in his form, and neither is confident, nor is his team. So I think for that striker position, you have to be very, very careful to when you take a punt on them. One thing you have to trust: are they firing? Number one, for a striker, they has to be scoring goals week in, week out. If not, maybe say they take they score one every 2 weeks at least. If not, spending 8.3 million, yeah, I think is ridiculous. For example, a would get, I don't know, 1 goal every 2 game weeks, right? Who's 6.5 or 6.2, right? and you got Isak sitting there with 8.3. He's getting 1 goal every 3 games. That's not good enough. Whereas Watkins, given his fixtures, I could see him averaging a goal or an assist every game week, if not every 2 game weeks.
Look at Newcastle's next 5 fixtures, right? Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, West Ham, Crystal Palace, Liverpool. Why would you even contemplate owning Isak in that run when Newcastle aren't firing? Like the data could bro. The data could be 3 xg per game. I'm not bringing Isak in that run. Would you
Yeah,
bring?
that's fair. I mean, I wouldn't want to start him, that's for sure. No way. So why would you own it? Makes sense.
Yeah, Akanji, I think there are lots of options right now. There's lots of good strikers you got available. They provide exceptional value, and they actually enable you to buy the likes of Palmer, Saka, Son, Salah. Can you see that midfield with Mbeumo? That's ridiculous. For me to go take a punt on Isak, who doesn't have a great fixture, I'd rather go with Raul. You might think that's shocking, but I'd rather go with Raul Jimenez over Isak right now, considering his fixtures and form, both things. So yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's
guys
pretty
want to?
fair. That's pretty
Yeah.
fair. Yeah, it does seem like it's probably better to have Watkins over Isak, even though that's not what I would do. But that's the like majority rules opinion here. And then yeah, I think of the premiums, I think we're just agreeing that Salah and Saka and Palmer would be the ones over Son. Is that going to be what we agree with, or?
I think you gotta rotate one of them. You can't have all four. I think you gotta still, if you want to have Watkins, you gotta still have one of the enablers. So now you pick like you choose which enabler you want to have. You got the likes of Semenyo, you got the likes of Rogers. There are lots of enablers in with the midfield. Obviously Bonate, who came to the scene now. So a bunch of enablers who are not gonna be. You don't need them every week unless you want to start them. Um, and then obviously you got the likes of Watkins and you got Wood and obviously Raul, which will enable you to fund like the likes of Salah, Palmer, and Saka. And then depending on fixtures, you switch around Saka and Son. That's what I would do personally. I would personally keep Salah and Palmer regardless of the fixtures. I think they're the two most explosive premium asset that you can own outside of Haaland. So yeah.
Yeah, this isn't the most optimal answer I could give you, but I'm gonna own Palmer for the rest of the season because I'm a Chelsea fan, and I just want the added excitement of watching my team, knowing I've got my favorite player in my team. So yeah, that's how I'm gonna do it. And that's not optimal, but ultimately it's fun. It's a hobby, so that's yeah. I'm never getting rid of him.
No, I think he's actually mispriced. I think he should actually be priced like 11.5, 12, like he should be. So I think that's a really good opinion to have. Just go for Palmer and keep him in. Pretty fair.
I was a,
And when we look at the data, it's like we'll see, for example, that Saka picks up like not all of his XGI is XG. A lot of it is actually XA, which is why his XG non-penalty is actually so much lower than the other premiums. So it makes sense that he would be the lower of like the three between Salah and Palmer. So that makes sense. So those are some really interesting like talking points. And so I guess the next section that we can cover would be my favorite section of the pod, which is going to be the PFC section. Cayman, how did you do last week, bro?
I did really, really well, man. I think like I finally got a captaincy right. Actually, captaincy right. I guess the last 2 weeks he was a flop. I didn't get Haaland right. I captained him. Third time, at least he's got a goal. And obviously the punt of the week, Wissa. I told you guys, listen, it was a no-brainer to be honest. Ipswich, he should have had more than 2 goals. I think he had a goal and assist. I think it was an own goal, but it should have been his goal. And then obviously Diaz, that's a lucky assist. Should have been a flop, but he's got a nice assist, to Van Dijk. And yeah, ultimately 2 points. Haaland, he almost, yeah, he should have had more returns as well. To be honest, we got away with one. And yeah, man, listen, I'm doing quite. We're gonna get into the next section where you guys can see where I'm doing really bad. I think my worst one is flop, but yeah, we'll get to that.
No worries, bro. But yeah, I'm also a non-Holland owner, but I still thought Holland was the optimal and best captain this week. So at least he got one return, but that kind of feels like a flop if you ask me. And then I had Havertz as the flop, and he was coming up against Van Dijk. He had a really good moment to actually get a cross to the back post to Jesus, but Jesus missed it. So thank God Havertz blanked that week. And my punt was Matoma. A very underwhelming performance from him, and I'm expecting more from him in the weeks to come. Ark, what are you thinking?
I should have been 3 for 3. Haaland, he's been watching our content and he doesn't want me to win. So, Foden set him up on a platter and Haaland missed it. What can I say? Foden should have had a return. Havertz flop. Havertz is a flat track bully. He doesn't turn up in the big games. You can at me all you want, Arsenal fans. He don't. Haaland, the no-brainer. To be honest, ridiculous that you only got one return, but it is what it is. Are you looking at our tally now?
Yeah, we're gonna look at our
Yeah,
tally
for
right now.
sure.
There we go. Yeah. So right now, I'm on two. I've got so far 2 punts, one flop correct, and 3 captaincy. I'm on total 6 points. So the section I need to improve on is flop. So, and I think probably punt. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like the most balanced. I'm just the best FPL manager, right? So that's why I'm in fine.
No, you're cheating.
No,
You're
I'm
cheating.
kidding,
You pick
bro.
the same player every week. You're cheating. We'll get to that. You're
He's
boring. You're
calling me
cheating.
out.
We're
All
gonna.
right,
I'm gonna
we'll
call
get
you out
there. We'll
today,
get
guys. This
there.
guy is cheating, guys. I'm gonna show you guys how he's cheating, and I'm gonna do the same thing now. He wants to be toxic.
Bro, like I couldn't take a punt. Don't copy my punts, guys, but my flop and captaincy is on point. Look at that. I've been robbed.
Facts, bro.
Getting robbed on the punts, man. Foden should have had a return.
Yeah, you're just cursing players. That's it, bro.
So far, Kanji is ruling, guys. He's the king so far. So let's go to our next week captaincy and flop and punt. So yeah, sorry. There we go for game week 10. This is our punt, flop, and captaincy. So I'm going with Dilap. I know he's got benched last week, but listen, versus Leicester, I'm expecting big things. So Dilap is my punt for this week. And I've got flop as Pedro Porro because this guy Kanji, guys. Let me expose this guy. He had Pedro Porro for the last 3 weeks, and that's why he's been keep getting these freaking points on flop. Because how are you having the same flop every week? Come on, be a bit more entertaining. We're gonna change up the rules now, guys, because this guy have cracked the system, and he found a loophole within the system, just like how Chelsea found a loophole. So we're gonna add a new rule where depending on who has the most points last week, that's the person that goes first, and you can't have the same, obviously, flop and punt. Captains you can have the same because we go based on what's the best captain on paper. But ultimately, look, Pedro Porro, he's going to concede versus Villa. That's a given. You can put any money, whatever you want. I don't bet, but yeah. And then you've got captaincy as Salah. I think on paper is the best captain versus Brighton. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I also have Salah as the best captain at home to Brighton, the high line. Ooh, that's tasty. And then Porro, he's obviously going to concede. Watkins owners, you're probably going to be salivating looking at that fixture, especially given that Palace actually beat Spurs last week. But maybe Son coming back will change the picture. But Poro's still going to blank for sure. And then my punt is actually Foden, and he has less than 10% effective ownership. Surely this is the week that he gets something. Against Bournemouth, he has 6 returns and 5 starts, so I'm expecting big things from him. What do you think can start?
Uh, Darwin. I'm 0 for 5 on my punts. My goodness. So Darwin, what that means is anyone who's bringing in Darwin, he's gonna blank. Unfortunately, flop. DCL, sell him now. Sell this guy right now. This guy is trash, bro. Like, disclaimer, I just sold him in my team. So this is going to be a hate watch. This is going to be a hate flop. I'm going to be watching this game, laughing my head off when he gets put through on goal and falls over his own feet. Captaincy, Salah, obviously, I think that's a no-brainer. I think Brighton's defence is there for the taking. So I think if you own Salah and Haaland, I would go with Salah.
Damn, I think this is the week K-Man makes a comeback, bro. I'm not back in Stark, bro. DCL's gonna bang, bro. Don't listen to him. Anyway,
So make sure, guys, you do your punt and flop and captaincy as well on the comment section. I think this is an interesting section that we come up with. It's really fun. It can be interactive. Obviously, we'll respond to you and see how much you got, how many points you got, and you can compete with us. As you guys saw our tally, you can see how well you guys are doing if you're keeping a track. And yeah, it will be quite a fun section. So let's move on to our game week 9 team review for Kanji.
oh gosh, bro, this season was horrendous. Like looking at the Saturday points, bro, I was chilling. I was cooking, bro. I had Lewis clean sheet, Foden blanked, but Holland only got 6 points. It didn't really matter too much as my captain. I had Bumo points, I had Cunha points on the Saturday. It was a pretty disappointing week because I had some 50-50 decisions and I got them all really wrong. I mean, it was Foden versus Bumo captaincy. That was a big deal. I was also considering, Gabriel starting versus Liverpool, or should I start at 8 Nuri? But I ended up starting Gabriel, and it's just like the 50-50s are really gone wrong. And I'm looking at my team where I see Calvert-Lewin and Solanke still there as well. I got big problems, boys. So hopefully my team will look better going into next week. So I'm kind of looking at this squad, and I'm going to be benching Solanke. There was some positive news from Paul O'Keefe stating that he's expecting Son to start this match, so that's a good thing. And so I'm looking at the starting seven attackers, and I like it. Bumo, Foden, Palmer, Son. I'm cooking there. I do have a little bit of money in the bank to actually upgrade Foden to Saka. I'd be 2.2 away from that. I wouldn't do it over the next 2 weeks, but if I find some money, I'll be able to do that in 3 weeks' time when Saka's playing against Nottingham Forest, or maybe that entry point against West Ham. We'll see. Johnson is there, my favorite enabler in the game right now. Could potentially move him to Eze later on, but I'm very happy to own Brendan Johnson. There's an injury to Odeberg, so I think Johnson's minutes are nilled for 90s now. And then we have Calvert-Lewin and Cunha, two of the best budget strikers, I think, this week in particular. Calvert-Lewin, if he blanks, I'm going to quick sell him next week, like legit. I'm expecting a return. Anything less, and I'll be disappointed. And I have the three best defensive options in the game in Trent, Gabriel, and Raya. And then it's a decision between Aid Nuri and Rico, and I'm just going to be going with Aid Nuri because he's at home. And I just don't expect City to keep a clean sheet. So I'm just going to be back in the home fixture. You guys have any feedback on that?
Yeah, I think you should get rid of DCL. Best budget option for this week, and DCL doesn't belong in the same sentence. This guy cannot play football as a striker for any more in your team, bro. You need to get rid of him. Solanke as well. Benching Solanke is a weird one, man. Like, I feel like you just have to get rid of him if you're gonna bench him, bro. Like, because the triple Spurs is like, obviously we mentioned it last week. We don't necessarily agree with that, and I just think if you downgrade Solanke, money's there, and like surely you want Salah in this team, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you bring in Salah whatever it takes. I don't care what you do. I think you need Salah in this team, and just firm the minuses if you need to take it, bro. If you have to bring in, I don't know, downgrade Solanke to an Archer or something, or a 4.5, and you need to fund Salah, just do it. I just think he's got such an upside in the next 2 to 3 game weeks, bro. Like Southampton, Villa, Bournemouth. I mean, so not Bournemouth, sorry, Brighton to captain him. Yeah, bro. Honestly.
No, but
Yeah,
we need to
he's a
let
better captain this week as well.
we need to let Kanji cook though, because his original plan, it made sense because I analyzed it myself as a no Haaland owner at one point, and I thought, right, okay, Salah's Champions League run is difficult. Kanji, go on, explain why you don't have Salah. So you're in a no Haaland structure and you don't have Salah. A lot of people will look at that and think that's bonkers. So like, explain your thought process.
Yeah, well, basically, like Salah, I don't expect him to play 90 minutes in the league. So I think his minutes will be rotated. The key with having a player like Salah and Haaland is just captaincy. This is the only week that I think I would ever captain Mo, because every time Mo has a good fixture, Palmer has an equivalent good fixture and he's playing 90 minutes. So it's a 50-50. I'm going to be leaning to Palmer. So there's only 1 week where I feel the pain, and it's this week. And it was the same thing with Haaland last week, where it's like, hey, I'm only going to feel pain from Haaland with 1 week. So I'm just sort of trying to get to game week 12. If I can get there without Salah and without Haaland, I'm very happy to continue betting against them. I think from game week 12, my structure will thrive. I just have to get there. So hoping I can survive. It's just how much damage Salah will do. That's going to be the key decision. And I love Mo because like Mo is my second favorite behind Trent. So I want to try to figure out a way to bring him in, but I don't
Why
know
don't you
what
get
the route
Darwin
is yet.
as a punt? I know I know it's crazy. I know it's insane. I know. Like, look, I mean, if you look at the news and see Jota's out for a while, just for the next 3, because they play all these fixtures are high line fixtures, like Brighton, Villa. Darwin could eat. I mean, Stark has him as a punt for a reason. You know what I mean? I understand he's a
The
brick
problem is,
striker. I understand, like, but he did have an assist last week, if you guys remember, right? He is playing a bit more team football rather than selfish football, because Klopp gave him open license to shoot on sight, and he was doing madness, right? And the fact that, look, I think he's a menace, bro. I think if Jota is out for a while, I think you can take a punt on him, because you got 2 cancers in your team. Ultimately, DCO and Solanke, and they both need to go. And if you can address one of them this week, that's a W in my books. I'd personally bench Johnson,
yeah.
sell Solanke, and get Darwin. Because if you're going with no Liverpool for the next 3 fixtures, bro, I think that's criminal. Personally.
Yeah, that might actually be the move, to be honest. Definitely something I'm thinking about.
Yeah, to
Yeah,
be fair,
that's the way the team looks. That's some really good feedback.
I think that's a great shout. Solanke to Darwin. You even bank like what 0.5 mil, 0.6 mil.
And I already have 0.7 in the bank as well.
But damn, there's your Saka money, bro.
Exactly. That's
Exactly,
perfect.
yeah.
That's a really good move. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
the thing is, no one can say, "Oh, but you're getting rid of Solanke for Ipswich." Well, hang on a second. You've got 2 Spurs assets still there, mate. You know what I'm saying? So
Sorry, can I just add to that? The fact that people are saying about the DCL the same thing. Remember when I was trying to sell him, you guys said the same thing. DCL has Ipswich, and what happened?
yeah. But what's funny? Solanke and you're going from Solanke and Calvert-Lewin to Darwin Núñez.
Yeah, no, it's some craziness, bro. Some craziness could
I'm
occur
sorry,
over
bro.
here,
I'm
bro.
sorry. I don't mean to laugh at you, bro. I'm sorry. No, I'm not laughing at you. But it's just this. No, I don't want my boy. Listen, you're
Not
gonna come back. Darwin is the goal. You're gonna come back. Listen, I think you gotta have Liverpool cover, bro. I think. Listen, like all jokes aside, right? Like I understand you got the two of the brickest striker right now, and you're moving to another brick one. I understand. On
Yeah,
paper, it
no,
looks
it's tough.
bad, but bro, in case, and maybe there's a one universe, maybe one planet, where Darwin Núñez finally delivers, and you're a Liverpool fan. Finally delivers. And these fixtures are Darwin fixtures. On paper, they're Darwin
They
fixtures,
are.
bro.
They're Dortmund fixtures. They're 100% Dortmund fixtures. High lines. So
Oh
think
my
he's
it's a
god.
really good option.
think he's 2% owned, and ultimately you need to bridge the gap with your rank. So he could be that guy.
Facts, bro. I'll consider it. I'll consider it.
Yeah. Especially if you're not getting Salah, man.
By the
Yeah.
way, just a disclaimer: this is specifically for Kanji's structure and his team. He doesn't plan on getting Haaland. He doesn't plan on getting Salah. So his structure is there in place. So he kind of has the luxury of doing that move to get Darwin. I'm not recommending you guys to get Darwin. Just a disclaimer.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Should we move on? And here we have FPL Starks, Game Week 9 team review.
Just wiping the tears away. Sorry. Another red arrow. Double Arsenal. Going to Trent to Gabriel was such an L. Like, what a stupid decision. But ultimately, I didn't expect the red card, and I didn't expect Gabriel to come off in the 60th minute, injured, whatever. Even before the 60th. That Robinson clean sheet wipeout was one of the most painful moments I can remember in a long time in FPL. Like, I was sat there thinking, damn. I looked at my rank in the top 100k, and I needed 4 points for a green arrow, and Robinson gave me 7 points. So to have that snatched away by a terrible Everton team in the last second by Beto was heartbreaking, to be honest. And Foden should have had a return. Like, I'm going against Salah with Foden. I'm going against Saka with Foden. And Foden blanking is just killing me because everyone in the top 100k pretty much has Salah. And back-to-back 10 points is killing me. It's killing me. And Solanke and DC
Yeah.
just criminal. I don't know what I was doing.
So
Are we?
Starks Game Week 10 team selection. Stark, any thoughts?
I hate the fact that I have the captain armband on Haaland. I wish I had Salah, man. I think K-Man structure. Yeah, I think you're so ahead of the curve. By the way, having Salah and Haaland for this
Yeah.
specific
Yeah.
from game week 10 to 13. No, game week 10 to 12. Like, it's literally Salah in 10, Haaland in 11, Palmer in 12. That for me optimal captaincy route, and I'm very jealous of that. But I made my bed. I have to lie in it. I don't want to be taking hits. Hopefully,
Yeah.
Gabriel's. So if Gabriel's fit, I'll keep him. If not, 1 week max, I'll bench him for Robinson. As we can see, they've kept clean sheets. They almost kept one. Solanke, I obviously made an early move, and I transferred out disaster Calvert-Lewin. Got in Raul Jimenez. I think Raul Jimenez versus Brentford will outscore DCL versus Southampton. I think that's a great fixture for any striker. I love how Raul is creative as well as getting a lot of chances. Fulham strikers get a lot of chances. Just look at the data from last season. Muniz, 4 shots per 90. This season, Jimenez, 4 shots per 90, 2 shots on target per game. If you're getting 2 shots on target per game, the likelihood is if you're a good striker, you're going to score. Solanke is an issue, but my hope is Maddison gets dropped, Sarr and Basuma and Kulusevski start, which gives them more structure. And the lack of 2 10s means Solanke's more of a focal point. So the system will change. So if Solanke becomes the focal point like we all thought he was, suddenly he's a good asset to have for Ipswich. If that's not the case, that is hopium. That is copium. If that's not the case, I'll get rid of him, and I will be rolling until 13, and I'll be getting rid of the robot Haaland.
I do think that's the optimal strategy for yourself. I think is to not knee-jerk into Salah. I think you went with a strategy. You had a plan. I want you to stick it out and see how it goes, because ultimately Foden can do damage versus Bournemouth, especially if KDB is out. Um, and then I think with the no Haaland shout, I think that's the optimal thing to do, because you're going to bring in Salah and Watkins, and on paper that's a good transfer in my books. And ultimately, you don't need to captain Haaland from 13 to 18, correct? As we looked at the fixtures earlier.
Yeah.
And then you also have a really good cover for Gabriel if he's out. You don't need to make any moves. You can save your transfers. So I really like your team, honestly, mate. It's just that, are you sure you want to start Davies ahead of Robinson versus Brentford at home?
Oh yeah, man. Like I'm actually looking forward to that assist from Davis on the weekend. Just solidified in my head why I own him in the first place. Like it's fixtures like this where this is a big fixture. This is a relegation battle early on in the season. This is like a 6-pointer. So I'm really hoping he can get something at home. I think they play much better at home as well, and I just hope this is the week where, as a differential, if he can just get a 15-pointer, I know that's dreaming, or even a 10-pointer. Like that just mitigates the damage that Salah does to my head top in the top 100k. This is a scary week to Salah, man. Honestly.
Yeah,
I
I
know.
like
Yeah,
your team,
have
man.
you
Yeah.
considered just taking a hit to get rid of Solanke? I mean, he's been playing CDM the last couple of weeks. You could just take a -4, put a striker in there. That it's probably better longer term for you.
Nah, I can't do that. I just can't do that. The only way I take a hit is if Gabriel's out and I get like for a long time, like say like a month or something, then I would bring in Trent, because I do have a transfer plan and I do have a captaincy plan all the way through to game week 23. So Raul Jimenez is part of that transfer plan. The entry point was just move forwards, because I don't enjoy owning him. I don't look forward to watching Everton play, whereas I know I will enjoy watching Fulham. I think Fulham are actually a really good team this season. So, and I'm looking forward to watching Fulham having Raul Jimenez, because that's what FPL is about.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bring Son in because I'm going to captain Haaland in 11, so it doesn't make sense to bring Son in. So I'm just going to keep
Mhm.
Salah and hope that he goes to a Saar Basuma midfield with Kulu or Mado in the 10. And hopefully that just brings Solanke more chances, because they're not focusing on this double 10, which makes I feel like it's like a chain event where the two 10s are
Yeah,
calling Solanke to drop in and the wingers are overloading, kind of thing. So I think it might strike a bit if they get rid of one of the 10s.
yeah, makes sense. I mean, you're pretty much locked into 2 points with Solanke, but let's hope. Hope you get something.
Bro, Villa, high line, like who knows, man? Just feed him the ball in behind. He might get something.
Can I
Bro,
touch on
it'll be
something
Brennan or
else?
Son, you know?
You do know that Fabianski started last week, so that's another shout there. The fact that you have him, and then you can rotate him when Rare does play. So when he has tough fixtures. So
Yeah, on my wild card, I'm gonna get rid of Raya. To be honest, I'm gonna get Sells.
fair enough. Yeah. All right. Let's just move on to my game week 9 team review. And Alhamdulillah, thank God, I've had a fantastic game week. I've went from 8k, 8.9k to all the way to 4.3k now. 75 points. Insane green arrow. Insane, absolutely crazy, to be honest. To be in this position at this time, I'm privileged. I'm thankful, to be honest. Listen, I don't know if I can sustain this, guys. Um, I'm just glad I'm here, and I hope you guys can join me and support me. Both you and Stark and Kanji as well would make better decisions so that I can obviously finish, if not win FPO, at least finish top 1k. Um, Best case or worst case scenario. Um, just to cover the defense, Gabriel Konate, I didn't have much expectation from them, to be honest. I just think that they're a long-term pick, but they both got 1 pointer. I expected it, to be fair. Sanchez, however, I didn't. I did think that there was a potential for clean sheet because Newcastle are not firing. So really disappointed 1 point, but still long term. Hopefully he will come good. Lewis finally clean sheet for City. Quite happy with him. He's still got quite a good few positions. And then midfield, that's where the bread and butter is. as you guys can see, the premium paid off. I didn't knee jerk, or I stayed patient, trusted my plan. I didn't go for the likes of Son and Foden. If you guys watched the last episode, you'd have seen that the temptation for selling Saka to Son or Foden was quite high. Even on my deadline stream, I was quite close. But I just thought that, no, well, let me stick with my plan for long term and trust it. And ultimately that paid off. And I got in Palmer last week and he's got a 10-pointer. Same with Salah, 10-pointer. I kept faith in him. I didn't sell him when everyone said to sell him. And then obviously you've got Mbemo, Mr. Consistent and Reliable, who's got 15-pointer. And then obviously Dilap, he was benched, unfortunately, but he still could have had 2 goals. I'm hoping he'll get a start next week. And then obviously the main man himself, the one I have had from day one, is Wood. I think he's one of the big reasons why I'm where I am, to be honest. He's a big differential in the top 10K. I think he's like 20% owned. So him just getting that 13-pointer boosted my rank insane. Same with Dilap. So yeah, really, really pleased. Let's hope I can keep this up. And yeah, keep showing love, guys. And I'll do my best to help you guys also get good ranks. So yeah, follow us, and if you have any questions, definitely ask. Because I don't see that many content creators having that good of a season. So I'm fortunate to be where I am. But yeah, so let's move on to my team selection for game week 10. Yeah, Sanchez, Lewis, Gabriel, Kanate. Obviously, Gabriel is a doubt. If he doesn't play, you've got Burgess coming in. On paper, I do have a good fixtures for all my defenders, if I'm being honest. So let's hope we get lots of clean sheets. And then you've got midfield Mbemo, Rogers, Salah, and Palmer. Pretty template, to be honest, if you look at Mbemo and Palmer. Obviously, a lot of people don't have Salah. That's my differential, believe it or not, within my rank. It's crazy. In the top 10K, there are not that many people on the Haaland and Salah draft and Palmer, because I think that's the best premium to own, as Stark said. And that was my long-term goal. And obviously, I've got the likes of Rogers and Semenyo to rotate depending on fixtures. Same with Dilap. So yeah, midfield is insane, as you guys can see. And then on forwards, Dilap, Wood, and Haaland. It's just that Dilap is a concern. But worst case, if he gets benched, I think even if he comes off the bench, Leicester is a fixture where I think he can get a return. So yeah, I think on paper it looks good. So wish me all the best. What do you guys think?
Yeah, like I think your structure is just so I can't see how you drop out of the top 10K with that team. Like in this fixture, it just doesn't. In the next by game week 12, I'm honestly predicting you to get more green arrows. Like
Hope so, man. God willing, inshallah.
your team is you're gonna make all the right decisions. The right decisions on paper, right, is Salah this week, Haaland next week, Palmer next week, or Salah in 12. So if you make those decisions in captain, they should return, which should do you well, man. That team is a great team on paper.
It's just my concern is Delap though. He's got benched. What would you guys advise me? Because I'm so tempted if I get leaked that Delap is benched to do Strand Larson. Would you do that move, guys?
Not this week.
But if he's benched, I get a leak that he's benched. Would you say that Delap is still a hold then?
Yeah. Kanji,
Fair
you're
enough.
on mute.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I would definitely stretch to Cunha. Would you consider selling Chris Wood? Not now, but in like a
Nah,
couple of weeks' time, or is he
nah.
just a lock?
He's a Mr. Faith. He's the reason why where I am. So I'm one of those managers where I regret selling him. Basically, I thought I had the same idea what you just said, right? I sold him in game week 3 because I wanted to jump on João Pedro. And then he kept banging in goals. And I regret him and I walked at it and then I brought him in. And now for me, he's a rotation piece. He rotates with Rogers, Semenyo, and Delap. So Delap could be Strand Larson, and I could play Strand Larson in any week, right? And I could bench when Wood has a tough fixture. And Semenyo and Rogers are just, you can start them any week, bro. These guys are good players, right? So, and worst case, if they don't get a return, they will get 3 points for if they keep clean sheets. So it's just on paper. And
Yeah.
ultimately, bro, I'm expecting my 3 premiums to carry me. I'm expecting Salah, Haaland, and Palmer to carry me every week. Worst case, and Mbeumo as well. Mbeumo is becoming a premium. He's 7.7 now. Do you guys know that? He started with 6.5, guys, and he's 7.7.
Wasn't it? I thought he started at 7, dropped to
Oh,
6.
sorry, 7. Actually, sorry, 7. Yeah. Now 7.7. He's going to go to 8 million. That's insane rise, bro. Insane.
Here's a talking point, right? Just
Yeah.
quickly. If Umo's fixtures, I would say, they're quite poor after game week 14 when they play Villa. Are you going to keep him or are you going to move him on?
I think I'm gonna keep him, man. I don't see who else I'm gonna go to unless I don't know who I'm gonna go to, and I don't think I can bring him back. I don't know if I'll get the same value back. Do you know what I mean? Like I think he's. I will see. I don't wanna. I don't wanna say that for sure because ultimately I'll have to make moves. I can't keep everyone, right? So I'll say time will tell. I'm gonna be patient.
I mean, you're kind of put in a box here, where if you have like Salah, Palmer, Holland, your defense is really hard to really spend transfers on them. Um, so it's
It
like you kind
sounds
of only
crazy,
have those
right? It's
top
like
four
my team
players
doesn't
where
need
it's
a
like,
transfer except like the budget picks, like Delaps and and Semenyo's and Rogers, unless I want to sell them. Do you get it? So I could only upgrade the likes of Semenyo and Delap.
yeah, that's the only thing. Like I think Cunha is the one, but if you can't get to him, you got to get to just Larson. It makes sense. You don't need
I
to
Yeah,
do it
yeah.
this week, but later.
if
Next
you
week,
want
yeah,
my you want my
yeah,
opinion, what I would do if I was you is
yeah,
I'd look at downgrading Rico Lewis
yeah,
to a Milenkovic
yeah.
or an Anderson Fulham,
Hmm.
and I would invest the money into Raul Jimenez instead of Delap.
I
That's what
agree.
I would.
That's a good
I
move.
agree. I would do that
That's a
as
good
well. Yeah,
move.
I would do that as well. What about selling Graves? I could do that next week. I could sell Graves and bring upgrade Delap to sorry, I could upgrade Delap to Raul.
I think Raul's going to rise in price this week.
Oh, that's the problem, man.
Yeah, it's a great move. Like if you like, you could
Mm-hmm.
make that. It just does. It's that's such a weird situation because your rank is amazing. The Laps fixture is amazing on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jimenez is obviously the better long term option, but he's gonna rise, so you'd have to make the -4 now and get rid of Greaves, right? But I
Yeah.
don't think it's the
I'm
Laps
not gonna do
fixture.
that. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna take -4 for Raul, bro. Personally, I wouldn't do that. I'm not taking
Yeah,
minuses until I absolutely have to, and it
yeah.
doesn't make sense this week for me. Worst case, what I'll do what you said, Lewis, downgrade Lewis to someone like a Milinkovic or something, and then upgrade Delap to Raul. That's it. I think that's the move. But we'll see, bro. I could even take out Sanchez, bro, and get sells. Do you get it? I can
Don't
find
do
the money
that.
like
Don't do
this.
that. Don't do that, bro.
No,
Those
no, I'm saying
fixtures
if
are
I
way too good.
if I were to look for a move to upgrade the lap to Raul, do you know what I mean? Because I've got Sanchez in what 4 5, I don't know, 4.7 or something, 4.6.
Mm.
Yeah,
Give
but yeah,
give the Lap the Leicester game. I
I'm gonna
think
give him that game. Yeah, yeah,
roll the transfer, two free transfers next week. You're cooking, bro. Like Rico
exactly.
Lewis,
Yeah,
I don't think they're amazing anyway. I know he's like kind of like one of those assets where you want to kind of keep him, but I think if the clean sheets aren't there, I
yeah,
don't know. It could take, but I don't know. I just think Raul Jimenez or who, like even who else? Evan Nilsson,
yeah.
maybe
He got
the
benched though
menu.
last week. He got benched last week,
He scored though, didn't he?
but he got benched.
Mm.
Yeah, it's true.
That's the problem.
Raul,
Yes, no.
Yeah,
Raul Jimenez benched one of the games for Muniz.
yeah.
I mean, does it
So
really
yeah,
matter like who your striker is going to be? You can just bench them and just play
yeah, that's
Semenyo
true.
and
I could
average
just
them up.
bench the lap, bro. I don't need to worry too much about it because from next week I could just play Rogers and Semenyo. It's fine. So I don't need to make any moves, bro. I'm just gonna hold and roll transfers and decide after from that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I know this sounds crazy. I would do the lap to Archer, and then
Nah,
next
nah,
week
nah,
Wood to Cunha. That's where I would be. So,
no, no, no. Archer is not coming in, bro. That's another cancer, bro. Yeah. So,
bro, he's your eighth attacker, bro. You never play
bro,
him.
I need someone to watch it with Rogers when he has tougher fixtures, bro. So,
Yeah, that's the
anyways,
thing.
yeah. Anyways, let's move on to our last section, which is community questions. So, shout out to the community, everyone that participated and asked questions. So, I'll first read out. We got Newman at Newman TBH from X/Twitter who said, Solanke, stick or bin?
Stick
Yeah, I
until
would sell. I would sell. I would sell.
team dependent, but I'm sticking for the Ipswich game. I'm hoping
Okay.
that
Hmm.
Ange looks to provide a solution. He's brought a striker in. You need to feed your striker. So ultimately, something's got to change. He has to find a solution. They're not winning games with 2-10s. They're literally fumbling leads. And when they brought Sarr in, it had a great impact on the game, and they won the game from a position where they were drawing. And Sarr looked quality. He has to make this change.
It depends who you're
Like
selling
he's
and if
not a
you're
striker.
upgrading to another position for me. Like if you're, for example, if you're downgrading Solanke to a Raul Jimenez, for example, and you're upgrading, I don't know, one of your, I don't know, Foden or someone like that in the midfield to Salah to captain him, I would do that maybe in a heartbeat. But if you're just doing it just because you're sick and tired of him before he's got Ipswich, I do think keep him. But again, depends also if you have a luxury transfers. If you have luxury transfers, I would remove him. But otherwise, I'll say stick, man. I know I'm giving both sides, but I gotta add context. It's very team dependent.
Yeah.
Just sell. He's not a striker.
Oh wow! All right.
Straight up.
The next question we got FPL_hammers at from X as well. We got who's the most underrated striker so far this season? I would go first. It's Chris Wood, and you can't
Yeah.
disagree because a lot of people
Yeah.
overlooked him and went with Muniz. Muniz's ownership was like 20% to start the season, and
Yep.
Wood was like 2-3%.
Yeah.
He's still underrated, I think.
Yep.
The striker I've underrated is Chris Wood. I still don't want to bring him in because I don't think Nottingham Forest are a team that score loads of goals. But the one positive thing to having Wood is if Forest do score, it is Chris Wood and he gets the bonus points. So, yeah, I've underrated
Yeah.
him.
Sure. And I think I would add in Nicholas Jackson to that. Been very consistent, surprisingly really good. I think he has a very strong minutes per expected goal development, similar to Palmer, maybe even slightly better than Palmer. So
Mm.
yeah, I mean he's very talismanic for them. So he's in that conversation for sure. But Wood the top tier of it.
Fair enough. Okay, the next question we've got is from FPL Warrior from X as well. Rogers to Son or Foden to Salah for this week?
Rogers to Son or Foden to Salah?
Yeah.
Foden to Salah every day of the week and twice on a Tuesday.
Kanji?
Captain him.
Sorry?
Yeah, do that and captain him.
Yeah, okay, yeah, same. I agree with you. Foden to Salah and captain him. All
But I
right.
don't think Salah is essential.
And then the other
I
question he
don't
asked
think he's
is
essential.
Salah essential to have for the next 3? Yeah, I wouldn't say anyone
No.
is essential, bro. I can't put that label on anyone, bro. It
But
depends on
he's
team.
gonna be
Yeah.
if you look short term, he's in the optimal next couple of weeks.
Yeah, but you
That's for
can't
sure.
label essential anyone. It depends on team. Who else do you have? If you have Palmer, Saka, and Haaland, he's not essential.
Yeah, no, but he's
It
not
just
essential. But it depends on your structure. Like such a weird question. Like if you go for no Holland and you're on wildcard, you have Salah at the first pick,
but we agreed
right?
though. We
So
already agreed though. No one is essential in FPL. We already agreed that. We're not gonna put that label on anyone.
fair.
That's it. We're in agreement in that, right? Unless I missed
Yep.
something. Yeah,
No.
because yeah, and then obviously you go at Citizens, TID, 5 premium midfielders plus Rowell and Wood. What? Or 3 premiums with Wood and Howard? What? How can you get 5 premium midfielders?
No, wait, what?
What?
No,
Wait,
I,
who
no, I
does he
think
have, bro?
it's Foden and Bumo, Salah, Palmer, and like Son or Saka. So you can have that 5-man midfield, but then you have 3 budget strikers.
Okay.
So it's like Rao, and Wood as your strikers. It's the no Haaland structure.
Okay.
A lot
I
of
don't.
content creators making
Yeah.
drafts.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't look into that personally, but I think we talked about it enough in regards to that premium is the best way to go, depending on your appetite on whether you want to go without Haaland or not. But yeah, bro, because I do think you need to spend some money in defense. So what they're doing then in that case, stock, they have no money on defense then in that with that structure. That's what you're telling me.
Yeah,
No,
they're
no,
going
no,
cheapies, man.
Then
no, no,
how
no.
can you fund Gabriel and Konate or Van Dijk with this structure? It's
So
impossible.
I promise you, those teams will still have Gabriel and Trent.
How is that
Wow.
possible? There's no way. There is no.
know-
Unless your team value is like 100 and
Bro, you're forgetting something, right? 3 budget strikers is the equivalent price of 1 Haaland.
okay, I understand that, but you still have Son, Salah, Saka, Palmer. They cost a lot of money, bro. I don't think you can
Yeah, they
have all
probably don't
5
have
of
Trent.
them
They probably don't have
and
Trent.
have
They
Trent
probably
and
don't have like
Gabriel or Konate or any of
they
them,
don't.
bro.
No,
You
they
have to
probably
have 4.5 million defenders. That's the only way.
no. You don't have to have all 4.5s. Like you can have a
Yeah, I don't
you
know,
can
man.
have a Gabriel in there. I promise you that.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
this structure of you going that many premium in midfield and you're not going against at least one of them, whether it's Son or Saka, is just melted to your whole structure of the team in terms of your defense or your striker position. You're sacrificing one or the other, in my opinion, and I think that is not optimal. But yeah, but I don't know your team obviously, but yeah.
But we didn't answer his question. So his question itself is like, it's would hold on. What exactly is his question? It's 5 premiums plus Raul and
And
Wood or
Wood,
3 premiums. Wood is in both. So it's basically Raul plus a premium mid or Holland and then a cheaper player like Semenyo.
3
That's his
premiums with
question.
Wood and Haaland. I think that's correct. I would take that all day. Yes, I agree with that one. 3 premiums
Yep.
with Wood
Same.
and Haaland.
Even I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree. There's too much I just think the first option is better, but you have one too many premiums in midfield.
I
Get rid
don't
of
think
one,
it's
go
better
down
though. I
to
don't think it's
Kai.
better because their fixtures are all they're not going to be good at all times for all of them. One of them is bound to have bad fixtures.
Yeah, but
So
it's a no Haaland strategy. That's the point. It's like if you go against Haaland, people are devising a midfield because budget strikers are actually doing well right now consistently, and you can rotate them for fixtures. If you have Son, Foden, Saka, Palmer, Salah, or Mbumo, what you know what I'm trying to say, like that midfield is so good that people are looking at it and it's looking appetizing. People are
yeah,
just looking at, is this the most optimal strategy to go against Haaland?
fair
And
enough.
I've seen some drafts on X and I think they look ridiculously good. But for me, I don't like it. If I'm no Haaland, I'm having Watkins and I'm having Trent from game week 15 onwards. So I'm going to be going threemium in midfield with Salah, Palmer, and either Son or Saka or Foden, one of them.
That's what I think is the optimal thing to do. Yeah. We all agreed on that. Last question. Do we think JP will be back in game week 14 and Haaland or Palmer for captain this week from FPL Rash? FPL Rashi, I guess.
I think we don't know when JP is going to be back, but if he's back in 14, I think he's a really good enabler. But Welbeck still exists too, because like JP is on pens, but he should have minutes risk rotated with Rutter because he's playing very well right now. So I don't know if JP is going to be the pick that we wanted him to be initially, but he's
Why
definitely
do
going to be
I
an
feel
option.
like why do I feel like there's a long distance love with JP for some reason with the community? I feel like there's too much love for him. People are waiting
Bro,
for
he's
him, being
just
patient
he
for him. It's
because
just listen, we've got Strong Larson, we've got Cunha, we've got Wood, we've got so many enablers. We don't need to be worried about when JP is back and if he's good. That's a trap. Avoid JP. Don't worry about JP. Stop dreaming about him. Don't worry about him. He's not a factor. He's not playing right now. I'd say, yeah, that's irrelevant, mate. Don't stress about him. Just
He's
there
a
are other
serious
options.
he's a serious rotation risk. Ruta is balling. He was signed
yeah.
at an expensive fee and they play the same position. There's no way on this earth JP is going to walk straight back into the team. He's going to be eased back in. Game week 12, Solanke to Danny Welbs, market. That's what I'm doing.
Yep.
When the fixture and Tottenham don't have good fixtures, Solanke to Welbeck still being slept on, by the way.
Yep. Last question. So that one is part of it as well. It says Haaland or Palmer captain this week.
I would have captained Palmer probably, but I don't like the new manager bounce. It's just such a factor.
Mm.
All the players are going to be playing to like prove that they should be the ones starting, regardless of
Mhm.
Amarim's. Or Amarim's going to be watching that game, so there's just an added edge into the game where they're just going to be at Old Trafford. Like, but what I would say is Palmer. I feel like there's something in him. He likes balling out in these fixtures, and he's got a good record versus United. So, but Haaland, I don't. It's a 50-50 for me, to be honest.
I'd go
If you have
Haaland.
Holland, you
I'd
should
probably go
captain
Haaland.
him. But
Yeah.
like the idea, if you have Holland, you should captain him. But I'm gonna probably be on Palmer captain this week, and that's because I don't have Holland or Salah, and I know
Yes.
it's suboptimal. So don't do it. Like I'd say, if you have Holland, captain him.
Yeah. Last thing I want to add on United. Speaking of United, I think people are talking about on Twitter right now whether to consider United assets and whether to keep them like the likes of Bruno Garnacho because of a new manager bounce. I think, guys, wait, like you got a really good game versus Chelsea for United. We really get to see him immediately, face a tough opponent, and from that make a decision. But still, be patient, guys. I know United have good fixtures coming up after Chelsea. Just don't jump on them right now. We haven't seen anything yet, So yeah,
From a Palmer perspective, though, this fixture is actually better for him now that Ten Hag is gone, because Ten Hag was gonna play very defensive. We don't know how this coach is gonna set up. If anything, it's gonna be more open than what it would have been under Ten Hag.
I don't
So
agree.
I'm just trying to see how Rash is thinking. I don't know. I'm just trying to get why he would even consider this.
Yeah, I don't agree that Ten Hag would have set up really defensively. I think at Old Trafford, Ten
Okay.
Hag. I think at Old Trafford, you're kind of forced to come out of your shell and perform. it's a very demanding stadium with demanding fans who have seen a lot of success. You can't justify playing haram ball at Old Trafford. Whereas away from home, they do sit more defensively. But it's like Arsenal, right? Arsenal have the most like defensive-minded manager at the moment, Arteta, in away games. But at the Emirates against Liverpool, they took the game to Liverpool and they played really well in the first half because it's at home. So there's an element of that. I don't think Amorim will be there for that game though. I don't know. I feel like it'll be some interim coach just for that game. But it depends how quickly they get the deal done, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that's about it. Just, Kanji, if you want to close it out.
Yeah, I think we've had some really good discussions today. We touched on a lot of different things. We went through our trip strat. Oh man, today was really good in terms of our discussions because we went through our plans. We went through the main topics in terms of Haaland triple captain as well as Gabriel replacements. We went through the premium swapping, so we did cover a lot. So we're really proud of us, and like we're really open to feedback. We're trying to change up the style of the podcast to make it more like viewer friendly because like we cut out a lot of the sections of the like team reviews from last week. That was just one piece of feedback that we'd heard from our like friends and that we thought the pod would be better. So hopefully this is like more entertaining and more valuable to you guys. And if you have any feedback, just let us know in the comment section down below. We'd love to hear that. And I guess I'm wishing you guys some green arrows as well as Cayman and Stark, and we'll catch you guys again next week, right?
Yep. Peace out.
DCL
Peace.
blanks.